Hello and welcome, konnichiwa, to episode 196 of the How to Survive podcast. This week, we are covering the 2002 Takashi Shimizu film, Ju-On, The Grudge. And who's on the pod? It's Joe. Joe on the pod.
That's good. Is that all off the...
What, you think I wrote that?
Yeah, I think it's very well written.
If you haven't listened to the How to Survive podcast before, then let me tell you, you're in for a treat. What we do is watch a horror movie. Then me and my friend Joe meet up and discuss it at length with no concerns for spoilers. Risky, I know, in today's modern climate. But there you go.
Everything's a spoiler warning these days.
Yeah, this is a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
That I'm saying now.
Yeah. So if when you said you weren't concerned, you're quite concerned.
Yes, I'm concerned for people. If you haven't seen Ju-On, The Grudge, you've had a mere 17 years in which to do so. So go out and watch it now, because it is a J-horror standard. Staple. And it is quite good.
The Sarah Michelle Gellar remake.
That's a thing that exists.
Yes, you may have seen that.
Also directed by Takashi Shimizu.
No way.
Yes, and also as was the sequel, The Grudge 2.
Okay, so this is the third in a trilogy.
Yes.
And he also directed two more in an American language trilogy.
Yes, this is the third in the Ju-On series after Ju-On the Curse from 2000 and Ju-On the Curse 2, also the year 2000. both of which were only released on video. Shimizu also directed Ju-On the Grudge 2, as well as the American remake The Grudge and its sequel The Grudge 2. He has no other work of note.
Wow.
Yeah. So
we're trying on that Grudge money.
Yeah, just before the spoiler barrier comes crashing down, Joe, did you like Ju-On the Grudge?
Yeah.
So did I. I think it's quite good, and it's an interesting ghost horror movie, which is made more interesting by a strange and, some would say,
confusing
structure.
Yeah.
More on that after this.
From the creators of the international award-winning sensation, Ringu. There is a curse, born of a powerful rage. It gathers in the places where the dead once lived. And if you cross its path, you die. But now, one survivor will learn the truth about a brutal murder, a missing child, and the chain that can't be broken. Look into the eyes of evil.
So, Joe, as we alluded to before the trailer, the film has a sort of strange structure, which I'm not going to try and replicate here. I'm going to tell you what happened in chronological order.
That would be too confusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, years prior to the film, Takeo Seiki murders his wife Kayako for cheating on him with another man. He also kills the family cat Ma and his young son Toshio. The murders create a curse that revives the victims as Onryo, a vengeful Japanese spirit capable of causing physical harm to exact their vengeance. Kayako's ghost murders Takeo and from this point onwards, anyone entering the family's home is eventually consumed by the curse. When they die, the curse spreads to their place of death and in turn consumes anyone who goes there too. Some victims appear to take on the characteristics of the Onryo before they die, for example, making the same guttural noises as Kayako or mumbling incoherently as Takeo.
Yeah, like I can't do it. Hold on.
It's like it sounds like a cracking neck, doesn't it?
How
Lovely.
about this? I could probably do it. One sec. Oh, I've done it already.
There you go.
Kind of like that.
It's a little bit like that.
A bit like that, yeah.
Office worker Katsuya and his wife Kazumi are the latest inhabitants of the house, along with his ailing mother Sachi. Katsuya and Kazumi succumb to the curse, as does Katsuya's sister Hitomi, who inadvertently brings the curse to her office and then her apartment. A social worker named Rika is sent by her boss Hirahashi to the house to check up on Sachi. She discovers the ghost of Toshio and then witnesses Sachi being killed by Kayako's ghost. Hirahashi finds Rika and calls the police, who discover Katsuya and Kazumi's bodies in the attic, and later discover the disappearance of Hitomi and a security guard at her workplace. When Rika relays that she saw Toshio at the house, the police are confused as Katsuya and Kazumi had no children. Upon researching the history of the house, they connect a series of murders and disappearances to it and contact a retired detective named Toyama, who lives with his young daughter Izumi. Upon hearing the deaths have begun again, Toyama attempts to burn down the house, but while there sees a vision of a group of teenage girls, one of whom appears to be his now grown daughter Izumi. Izumi flees upon seeing her father, and the other girls are consumed by the curse. Toyama is unable to burn down the house, but manages to escape as the detectives investigating the case are killed by Kayako. Sometime later, Rika, who is now recovered, meets her friend Mariko, a teacher, for lunch, but begins experiencing hallucinations of Kayako and the cat Ma. Mariko goes to visit a boy who never shows up to class, and Rika realizes too late that this boy is Toshio and that it's a trap. Rika arrives too late to save Mariko and realizes, as Kayako's ghost appears as her reflection, that she is doomed to play out the curse and suffer Kayako's fate. Takeo's ghost appears and kills Rika. In the years following his trip to the house, Toyama dies as a result of the curse. Sometime later, as a teenager, Izumi goes to the cursed house with a group of friends, but flees before Kayako's ghost appears and kills the other girls. This is the event that Toyama witnessed, and Izumi reveals she too saw her father in the house at the same time. The girls are reported as missing, with missing posters put up around Tokyo. Izumi becomes more unstable and paranoid. Two of Izumi's friends develop photos of Izumi and the missing girls and discover that their eyes are blackened out. In her home, Izumi encounters a vision of her dead father and her friends. The ghosts corner her before Kayako appears behind her and drags her into the darkness. In the attic of the Seiki house, Rika's corpse reawakens. And God help you if you haven't seen The Grudge, because Lord knows that is a difficult film to recap concisely.
But you did it.
There's a lot of players in the film,
Yeah.
a lot of characters.
They'll get their own short story.
They will get their own short stories. Most of them end with them being consumed by the curse. Ju-on came out to sort of mixed reviews, but I think has been sort of elevated to its status, I think in part because of the American remake, and is now, I think, widely seen as sort of a part of the J horror canon. What did you think of Ju-on?
It's very good, mate, isn't it? Quite scary at times. It is confusing and compelling all at the same time, because you're like, what the fuck's going on here? But in a good way.
Yeah.
The world feels believable and lived in.
Mm-hmm.
It's detailed and coherent, despite being an exceptionally bold undertaking. It's got a memento kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it's very very oddly structured.
It plays with time. It plays with people's perspectives and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it still looks amazing after nearly 20 years because it uses all physical effects, essentially. I think maybe there's some CGI on the videotape when the shadow comes out the toilet. But
yeah, exactly.
But aside from that, I'd say it's probably all physical.
Yeah, probably. And it is just people in makeup, basically.
Yeah, mostly, yeah. I liked the woman crawling down the stairs, Kayako, I guess. It's a really cool effect. They've also put like a latex bodysuit on her, so that when she like pulls her arms back, the skin on her back appears to like crease in like an animalistic kind of way, which is really creepy.
Yeah, it's quite sinister, isn't it? And you know, I think Kayako is a pretty scary character. The noise that she makes, as we said before, is pretty horrible.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I've tried it.
Like a clicking, horrible rattling noise. Like a death rattle, isn't it?
Yes, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
But when the phone rings and you get that on the line, you're like,
yeah,
it's not looking good for you right now.
No, we're in trouble.
There's lots of things that happen in it that require some level of knowledge. Well, they don't require it, but they benefit from you knowing a bit more about Japanese horror, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a lot about Japanese horror. But,
sure.
I read on IMDb trivia, for example, that take, for instance, the attack when Kayako shows up in bed with, I can't remember her name. Hitomi, right? Where she gets in bed and then Kayako just appears under the sheets.
Yeah.
It's said in IMDb trivia. It's said in the
tomes of IMDb.
Yeah, that certain types of ghost appear in small gaps in the physical world.
Right.
And that explains how she's able to appear in the sheets. So I guess Kayako and Toshio are examples of onryo.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, one other moment, I think, on the subject of Toshio is the elevator going up.
Yeah.
And good. Toshio's at the window of every floor.
That's good.
Which is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, onryo is, it literally translates as vengeful spirit or wrathful spirit. And it's a type of ghost in Japanese literature tradition that is capable of causing physical or psychological harm to the living or affecting the tangible world by way of natural disasters in order to exact vengeance, to redress the wrongs it received while alive, and then take the spirits from the victims' bodies. So this is sort of a little bit different to something like Paranormal Activity in that they don't, I suppose they do affect the physical world, don't they? But a lot of ghost stories are about, just a sort of spiritual thing that maybe some people can see and other people can't.
In the Edgar Allan Poe fashion, where like you'll see a spectre before you, or even like Shakespeare. Think about Macbeth, right? Is this a dagger I see before me?
Yeah,
right. It doesn't really matter if it's there or not because it's the ghost is a manifestation of your own guilt about it.
Yeah. Whereas in like if it's an onryo, it's like it's causing a lightning storm or whatever. Yeah, and it can be traced back as far as the 8th century. In 797. A chronicle stated that a Japanese scholar monk named Genbo was killed by the soul of Fujiwara Hirotsugu, a man who died during a failed uprising after Genbo politically discredited him.
Wow.
So basically, Genbo discredits someone who dies during a political uprising, and then his ghost in turn kills Genbo. According to this document. Yeah.
It's not impossible, is it?
And then in the early 10th century, a man named Sugawara no Mishizani, and apologies for any rubbish pronunciations, he was politically disgraced and died in exile. And his spirit was believed to have caused the deaths of those responsible for his exile in quick succession, as well as several catastrophes like lightning storms, which abated when they erected shrines to him and restored his pre-exile rank and position.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Because like this suggests a level of detail in the vengeful spirit thing. Whereas I think in the West, if I said it's vengeful spirits, you'd be like, is kind of more ephemeral. This, from
yeah.
what you're describing, it's just that
It's much
there's
more
rules to it, right?
Right, exactly. Like if you dishonor someone,
Yeah.
then yeah. There are other Japanese folktales which include onryo. In Of a Promise Broken, a samurai promises his dying wife he won't remarry, but when he breaks this promise, her spirit rips his new bride's head off, and her onryo is destroyed by a watchman who recites a Buddhist prayer while slashing her with his sword.
Well,
This one's particularly good. How a man's wife became a vengeful ghost and how her malignity was diverted by a master of divination. A man's wife becomes a vengeful ghost, but her malignity is eventually diverted by a master of divination.
there you go. Who saw that coming?
Yeah, it's a bit like The Exorcist, I suppose.
Yeah.
Sadako, and by extension Samara from The Ring or Ringu, is another cinematic example of an onryo.
Yeah.
And the long hair ghost girl trope is essentially a result.
Wet hair as well. Let's not forget.
Yes, but that's essentially a result of the onryo costumes, which are used in in kabuki theatre, which is like a traditional Japanese dance drama performance where onryo the costumes for onryo tend to include a white dress, wild unkempt hair, and a face makeup of white foundation and blue shadows.
There you go. I think
which is pretty much identical to every J-horror ghost girl.
Right, exactly. My research tells me that the unkempt hair over the face is because in Japanese tradition, having your hair up and neat is a sign that you're not a vengeful ghost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I really like The Grudge. I thought it was a pretty rote ghost story, which is made much more interesting by having that really strange elliptical structure.
Yeah.
And also, I think with any sort of J-horror or equivalent, there's a sort of cultural distancing effect where everything's a bit less familiar, which I think often makes it a bit more interesting, and you have to sort of
do a bit more thinking.
Do a bit more thinking about it, and also it probably makes it a bit scarier.
Yeah. It feels more otherworldly.
Yeah.
Not to be like an orientalizing racist about it, but it's what I mean is like it's so culturally alien.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's somewhat unusual.
Yeah, I don't think it's offensive to say that it's culturally
different from what we're used to.
Right, exactly,
West,
because that's not saying that it's weird or anything. It's just because we're two white Western men who, we've never heard of onryo until you've researched it for this podcast.
Right, exactly. So seeing it presented in a way which feels coherent, and it feels like the movie obviously obeys the rules that are set out by the rich tradition of onryo in Japanese literature, in a similar way to say the witch, for example, that obeys the rules of what we know in the West about European witches and witchcraft.
Yeah,
that a witch will use spices and herbs and cast spells on you.
Yeah, and grind a baby's genitalia into a paste and then rub it all over herself.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. But that's the point. Like, we know those things kind of inherently in our culture. But I imagine if you showed that to an audience that wasn't aware of those, it would still be jarring and unsettling. Perhaps even more so, because you'd be like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Yeah.
Right.
But then, do you think the fact that is J horror innately scarier than Western horror because of that cultural distance?
I think it's just more otherworldly. It's more unsettling. It's like hearing a note that you haven't heard before.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, actually.
You take something like Rosemary's Baby, right? That feels otherworldly in a similar way to, I think, that J-horror does, in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. It just made me think of Rosemary's Baby. I don't know.
Well, yeah, no, I sort of know what you mean in that it's the uncanny nature of it, right?
A better example might be like more recent A24 horror movies. So things like The Witch or Hereditary.
Yeah.
Or I think the new one coming out, Midsommar.
Midsommar. Yeah. That's Nordic horror,
right?
It?
Exactly. So they'll. I think the common theme through all of these is that there's verisimilitude. Am I using that word? Like the movie is coherent within itself and it obeys its own rules.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need to know those rules to be able to get the sense that it knows what's happening. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You don't need to know who King Payment is
Right.
to find Hereditary terrifying,
Yeah.
right? Which it is.
Yes.
It is one of the most unsettling films ever, but you're never taken through, this is what, is really happening.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens in J-horror, because it would be patronizing to a Japanese audience to be like, this is a type of ghost.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the remake of The Grudge.
Mm.
I'm guessing it's something like...
Well, it's an interesting one because I think it's set in Tokyo, but it has Sarah Michelle Gellar in the lead role. And I think actually it's not as, completely without merit as the American remake of Dark Water is, for example.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah. But
the American remake of The Ring is
okay, yeah. And I think, I think if there's some sort of effort made to try and create a sort of cultural equivalence to the culturally specific things in the Japanese film when it's remade for a Western audience, then I think it can be quite effective.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in The Ring that is inherently Japanese because they are replaced by things that a Western audience would find frightening.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas if it just copied things thoughtlessly, then it wouldn't have the same effect.
That's not to say, by the way, that like having any mythology in a movie makes it good, because think of like Paranormal Activity with demons and Toby and all this stuff, where it's like, it's just a mess. Like, we know what demons are.
Yeah.
In the West, and those, the demons of Paranormal Activity presumably are the demons of Christianity and that kind of tradition, but the movie is still abject.
Yes. Yeah. It's not good. No. Do you think that the whole J horror thing, do you think it tends to result in a better film? Or do you think that's just like...
I think it's, as we said, like A24 horrors. That's the production company that makes The Witch or Green Room or Midsommar, like we said, right? They're amazing, right? They're genuinely incredible. And it's not because they're Western, it's just because they're great examples of cinema. I don't think Japanese horror is better just because it's Japanese.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I do know what you mean in a sense, because it's like, I think there's a novelty to it. Like, I enjoyed it because it's unlike anything I'd seen before.
Yeah.
And I find that when I watch a lot of like French movies, for example, or when you watch movies in a different language. I know you watched a Korean movie this weekend.
Yeah.
I imagine that had elements that are like somewhat alien to you in terms of...
Yes and no, yeah. Because I wonder sometimes whether watching films that have such a great, or are more unfamiliar culturally results in you missing some of the things that would put you off a Western film. So it might mask the language barrier, might mask a bad performance or a bad script.
Yeah.
Or, the cultural distance might help mask any sort of theoretical bad cultural things in the movie, if you see what I mean.
Right. Okay.
So like we've watched a lot of like nasty early noughties horror movies.
Yeah.
And perhaps they would be palatable to a Japanese audience in a way that they are less palatable to us, because they hold things to different standards.
But would you I mean, if you dubbed Cannibal Holocaust into Japanese, it wouldn't be a better film.
No, that's true. But then that's I think a sort of example out on its own, isn't it? I'm yet to watch what I think is a truly bad J horror or like an East Asian horror, or watch one that seems to repeat the rote tropes of the genre in a way that so many Hollywood horror films do. But then that said, I have seen far fewer J horrors and East Asian horrors, and I'm sure there are a lot of stinkers out there.
Yeah, they wouldn't even hit your radar because of that distance.
Yeah, well, maybe that's it. Is that you only get the only ones that bridge the gap are the high quality ones, and so your sort of judgment is impaired by having a sort of lack of resource to draw from.
Well, we've been watching Dark lately.
Yeah.
Doing a watch through, and that's in German.
Mm-hmm.
And there's elements of that where it's like, I think it's probably saved by the fact that they're speaking German and I don't speak German. It could be the worst acting ever. And I thought that at times. And it's like, but because it's in German, you just,
Yeah. Well, that's sort of what I mean, I guess, in that maybe it helps mask some things about it that you otherwise would pick up on.
Yeah. I have a question, mate.
Okay.
About this. And you know, the Onryo are obviously vengeful spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, what is the moral of the story?
Don't kill your wife.
Don't kill your wife and child and cat, right?
Yeah.
Because the reason isn't because they are living people who, you know, you don't have the right to kill people. It's don't kill them because they might kill 15 other people, right?
Yeah, but it's I guess it's also saying like committing. So you know, in like Christian ideology, you don't kill people because you go to hell.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the equivalent is that you don't commit a sin like that because in doing so you'd essentially like irradiate the place where you do it and make it so toxic and uninhabitable that everyone who goes there will die.
Did Kayako kill her husband?
Yes.
And then everyone else who ever went there?
Yes.
Right. So he had his comeuppance fairly quickly. But then
I mean, I don't know what the time frame was, but that's I think what we're supposed to understand.
But that's the revenge had, you'd think.
Yeah, but then it's like you've created a monster, isn't it? Out of it. So perhaps that's an indication of something in Japanese culture where it's like it's less about the individual, it's more about preserving society. In whereas in Western tradition it would be don't do this bad thing because you'll go to hell. Yeah. In Japanese,
revenge will be visited on you.
Yeah.
Whereas it's more like revenge will be visited on all of us.
Yes,
if you
exactly.
do something wrong.
Yeah, perhaps that's the answer.
Food for thought.
Well, with all that said, Joe, how would you survive the Grudge?
So this is maybe you might call this mealy mouthed. You probably will. The old lady, the mother of the home.
Which home?
Do
you mean like the ailing mother?
Yeah,
Sachi.
Sachi, yeah. She is basically a witness to a lot of the deaths, isn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't do a bloody thing about it.
Yeah, well, I don't know how directly she witnesses things, and she is sort of senile. But she could. What, you thinking she could warn?
Anyone.
Rika when she comes in.
She could warn. There's 2 or possibly 3 people she could warn.
We don't really see her speaking or anything, communicating, do we?
That's true.
I think she's pretty heavy on the sundowning at that point.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's a difficult one to survive. I have a feeling that both this and next week's
Dark Water.
Dark Water next week. I think both of them are going to be difficult ones to survive.
Like, don't get haunted.
Yeah. I mean, one thing would be to slash the ghost with your sword while reciting a Buddhist prayer.
Yeah.
Because as we know from Japanese literature tradition,
that tends to work.
That is the surefire way of getting rid of an Onryo.
Yeah. No one actually does survive this, right? They all get killed by them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Could you make peace with it? If it pops up between the sheets and attacks you, can you go, I recognize that you're in pain and I want to help?
It doesn't appear to
be negotiated.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be sort of. Yeah, I don't know how you go about negotiating with an Onryo. It's a difficult one.
Yeah. And do they attack in pairs? It's just the woman attacks.
It's just the woman, isn't it? It's Kayako is the head Onryo, I think.
Yeah, and her son just is a freaky side effect.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, when Rika sees him in the cupboard, she should be like this.
Get the fuck out.
I'm gonna leave now.
But then, is it like Chernobyl and the damage is already done?
Quite possibly. And she's saying, I'm my Onryo measurer.
Yeah, my Onryo counter
goes up to 0.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't count any in here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Quite
Hirohashi's there saying, I think your Onryo account is broken. No, it's fine. Yeah, we need to ship in a bigger Onryo counter from Tokyo. Yeah.
So that's food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. My one real tangible piece of advice would be for Toyama, which is don't try and burn down the cursed house that kills people who go there. Stay away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
like if you like, he knows enough about it.
It seems like he knows about the curse, at least in a sort of oblique sense, doesn't he? And
when you see your daughter in there and she's grown up, and you're like, she wasn't grown up when I left this morning.
Well, that by that point the damage is done again, isn't it? Because even though he doesn't die in the house, he dies as a result of the curse later.
Yeah.
But I think the film implies a direct link between the case and his retirement, right?
Yeah,
like it's suggested
was driven to retirement. Mad. And,
yeah. He quit the police force because this case was so horrible.
Yeah.
Like, if you're out, then stay out.
Yeah.
And stick to your decision, because he doesn't do that, and it eventually leads to his death and the death of his daughter.
Yep.
Which is not good. It's not a good
ideal.
result.
Not ideal.
Although
it's
maybe
upsetting when they like go in a room and she's got like newspapers all over the windows.
Yeah.
And she's like screaming.
This ties into something that I'm going to talk about next week in Dark Water, which is just that so many J-horrors seem to be like, the prevailing theme is just like tragedy and sadness.
Yeah.
It's like, rather than that whole like nihilistic bend that early 2000s Hollywood horror movies were on, this is just like, isn't everything really sad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is exceptionally sad.
Yeah. And what a lovely note on which to end the How to Survive podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch, suggest a movie and leave some feedback, or just write in to tell us how much you hate the show, then the email address for that is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. And we've had a few emails, Drew.
Yeah, we have. First one here, Chris, is from Ryan in Orlando.
Nice.
Hey, fellas. You may have discussed this on Wolf Creek Pod. He hasn't listened yet, you see.
Right.
But I have a suggestion.
At the time of his email.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. Guess what a suggestion is?
Is it Ju-on the Grudge?
No.
Cabin Fever?
No.
Go on.
Bad Ben.
Another one for Bad Ben.
How many is that now?
I don't know, 3 or 4. I think there's some sort of coordinated Bad Ben marketing campaign.
Bad Ben and Hostel seem to be getting far too many suggestions for it to be real.
Yeah, it's if it was like a weighted poll, then the results would be thrown out.
Ryan, Bad Ben's already on the list, and we said we'd do it if it got to 100 recommendations. So keep up the good work.
Yeah. Thank you.
Email from Devin, who says, Hey, back again with another suggestion for you two. I'm certain you've seen a bunch of stuff about The Perfection on Netflix.
Yes, I have heard about that. I've heard some quite interesting things. It stars Alison Williams from Get Out and from Girls.
Yep.
And from what I know about it, it's like a mad, like, Black Swan meets body horror cellist film.
Right. Well, and this is the one you sent me the trailer for. Yes. It looks pretty
it looks
mad.
nuts. So I'm quite interested to watch it.
Devin goes on, it was a tricky movie which blurred the lines of right and wrong. So I'd be interested in how you would survive being any of the folks in the film.
Okay.
Devin signs off with what I guess is a Twitter handle, @Queen of Disturbia. So
there you go. Follow Devin for more movie suggestions, no doubt.
Jono.
Hello, Jono.
Jonathan.
Creek.
Yeah, Jonathan Creek's been in touch. Hey guys.
I'm stuck in my windmill.
Loving the podcast so far. I've been binging it for a few weeks now and wanted to give my thoughts on Cabin Fever, even though I don't really like Eli Roth.
Well, join the club, mate.
My suggestion is this. Don't shoot any humanoid looking things when you're out in the woods.
Yeah, especially ones that look distinctly not squirrel-like.
Yeah. Also, if you do see a creature in the woods, tell your friends and just get out of there. I know it's pretty simple, but it's what I would have done.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, I think. from Jono there. What do you think?
I think fair enough. Yeah, like, don't shoot people. Is the
Yeah,
key.
don't shoot people. It all goes downhill from there.
Email from Leo. Hey,
Leo.
y'all, love your content and hope that you'll do more video stuff in the future. Though I also love the podcast, so double love.
Nice.
You should check out Felidae, Felidae. Don't Google it. Sit down and watch it without any prior knowledge. It will go places you will not see coming.
Okay. I mean, that is evident by the fact that I know nothing about it. So.
You will never see it coming.
Okay. Sure. Why not? I'm sure we'll get around to that at some point. We've also had a couple of tweets, Joe.
No, have we?
Yeah, at HowToSurvivePod is the Twitter handle. First one is directed at you.
Why?
From our old mate Ben. He says Josh Brolin didn't eat the octopus in Oldboy.
Well, that's the problem.
That's not what you were arguing in the episode to which this is referring, is it?
Yeah, it was. That's exactly that. What I said is, in the original Oldboy, he eats octopus.
Yeah.
And
it's because you eat octopus when you're out for revenge or whatever.
Or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
and then you said, which is why it's so dumb when he definitely does do it in the US version.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I haven't even seen it.
No, neither have I.
So Ben...
Stop watching rubbish films, Ben.
Yeah. Yes.
Got another tweet. God's sake. Got another tweet from Ferrix, who says, discovered your podcast through the Final Destination marathon video and have been binging it since. I can't imagine how much time and effort you guys put in to make this video. He means the marathon. Yeah. Hopefully there'll be more video content. Well, this is a common refrain, and I'll say what I always say, which is, who is paying? They're expensive to make. Yeah. They cost a lot of money, cost a lot of time as well to put together. Never say never, but never again. No. We'll do it at some point, I'm sure. I have absolutely no doubt. And we do have vague plans for what the next few marathon videos would be. But it's just a question of getting the time and the money.
For perspective, last year we shot Final Destination in April and went live in October.
Yeah, I mean, I moved house.
No, don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's just life could get in the way.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, and that is the thing, is that we both have full-time jobs.
Yeah,
some more full-time than others. I mean, you work a lot longer than I do, but it's your own fault because you're a freelancer.
Yeah.
Hire Joe, give him more, put more on his plate.
There you go.
Yeah. HowToSurviveShow@gmail.com if you want to hire Joe. Thank you very much for your emails and for everything, for listening.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks for everything. If you, like Ferrix, had some kind words to say about the show, then please log on to your podcatcher of choice and leave us a favourable review, because that would really help us find a wider audience. And we've had a few more listeners recently.
It's been good.
Yeah.
Do you know what's funny?
Yeah.
You know the vegan episode?
Yes. It's our most downloaded episode ever. Well done, guys. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. We've done the biggest blockbuster movies of all time.
Yeah.
And the most downloaded one is the one where Chris isn't on it.
I am in
Later,
spirit, but also it's the least SEO friendly episode of the podcast because it's your name, vegan.
Yeah,
that's it, basically.
Well, you say it. Maybe there's a huge search volume for Joe Sherville vegan.
There may well be, and it's all you. I wonder if anyone's writing about how good a vegan I am yet.
Well, there you go, mate.
There you go. Thank you very much for listening. Next week it's Dark Water, and until then, keep slashing those Onryos with your swords and reciting those prayers. Goodbye.
Cut my life into pieces.